And you're about to put the paycheck on the line here in a little bit. So you had the idea of doing a Texas college football power poll.
Correct. Preseason.
Preseason power poll.
Very preseason. like football edition.
Like the preest of preseasons.
Correct.
So a power poll is theoretically, when you look at it on a map, not a map, but a graphic, I guess, what you're getting out of it is a ranking of teams.
Yes.
The thing about a power poll.
Yeah, like the top 25 that ESPN puts out, the AP poll puts out every single week of the college football season.
Correct. The thing about a power poll that's different from a regular poll, as in the AP top 25, is that a power poll has a very specific caveat. And that caveat is that the way that you rank them is all dependent on inter-conference competition.
Yes.
So what you're saying here is, let's just say, who won the national championship last year? Michigan? Mm-hmm. So you're saying that Michigan is number one. Okay, that's easy. You can rank teams all across all conferences and be like, okay, but what you're doing here is going, yeah, that's okay with competition, but we've got such a wide variety of competition from just straight up conference levels to 2 teams now in the SEC to the Sun Belt Conference to the
Conference
American
USA,
to Conference USA. We can all agree that Conference USA and the SEC is 2 different eras of football.
They are playing 2 different styles of football.
Completely different in every stretch of the way, whether you want to talk numbers, whether you want to talk scholarships, whether you want to talk equipment, weight rooms, any of that. It's 2 different worlds. So what you do in a power poll is you say, okay, you are ranking the teams that you think are going to do best in correlation to their specific conference.
And schedule. I put schedule on there as well.
Schedule.
Yes, because of course they've got all these schools have a couple of non-conference games that, they might win, they might not win, but it is all based on the strength of schedule and the competition that they face. So obviously you're going to have the best teams at the top, but that doesn't mean that all G5s are going to be at the bottom.
Right.
All P4s are going to be at the top. There's some wide range there, and I'll get more into that here when we actually pull up the power poll, but don't think that all the P4s are going to be at the top and then all the G5s are going to be down at the bottom.
Because it's not fair to say you take the winner of the SEC and you take the winner of Conference USA and to compare what those teams are.
Exactly.
You're not. Think about the college football playoffs. Power 5 in what it was always are going to take those spots. You had one G5 team sneak their way in with Cincinnati a couple of years ago and then Tulane after that, but it was like, okay, realistically speaking, who has a shot? No, this is saying we're going to put every single conference at the exact same level. Who is likely to basically win their conference? Right. Well, almost a good way to do it.
And on TFT today, Tepper brought up a really good point and put it in terms of high school football. He said that if you're looking at Aledo and Timpson, right? Very, very good football teams. If those 2 match up, Aledo is going to win 9 out of the 10 times, right? But if you're looking at Timpson as a whole, that's a dang good team, right? And a better team, than Aledo. But you can't compare the 2 because they're in 2 completely different classifications.
Yes. DeSoto cannot play Refugio. They're both done really good teams. They've both had continued success, but you're not going to do that. So there's the stipulation that we really wanted to get out of the way before Mallory pops up her graphic and goes, what in the world is this lady thinking? So without further ado, let's introduce your power poll and see what we have.
Boom.
All right.
There it is.
So
the first look at the Mallory Hartley 2024 preseason Texas College football power poll. Now, we do this every week on the Republic of Football. Craven sends me his list of his rankings of the top of the 13 teams in Texas, and we put it together. And then that's when I decided, hey, I think this would be a good idea for me to do it. I want to give it a shot. So looking at this here, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. What are you confused about, or what do you not agree with? I guess
I'll give you that at the end. I want to see what your thought process was here, because I feel like initially we're going to start off with the Texas Longhorns.
Yes, correct.
That to me makes sense.
Yes, I don't think there's any debate that heading into the 2024 season, the Texas Longhorns shouldn't be number one in this poll. Not only are they the top team in Texas, but I think they're one of the top teams in the entire country. I mean, they return a lot. Quinn Ewers is coming in for his 3rd season at the helm. And also, he's got a great quarterback to back him up if he gets hurt in Arch Manning, right? Sark also did really, really well in the transfer portal, too, bringing in guys like Andrew Makuba, Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden, guys that are going to be impact starters, right? It's just one of those things that I think that they are going to be clearly so dominant in the state of Texas and in the SEC that you have to put them at number 1.
Yeah, I think realistically, in my mind, Longhorn fans are going into this season thinking we should, if not win a national championship, should be in clear competition for a national championship. So it's hard at that point to say, yes, we just got done telling you that this is all relative to competition, but look at the SEC. Texas is about to walk into an SEC where they can be an immediate benefactor, and if you're that in the SEC, then you're top dog. That one to me makes perfect sense.
Yes. Here is where I had a lot of time to think about. Number 2, Texas A&M, and number 3, UTSA. I had those two going back and forth, and you might hear that and be like, you're crazy. Texas A&M's in the SEC, put them over an AAC powerhouse, right? That would make sense. But you got to think about it. I was thinking of how are these teams going to do within their conference schedules, right? Ultimately, I did decide to put Texas A&M over UTSA because I think Connor Wigman is going to be the guy.
If he can stay healthy.
If he can stay healthy, I think Texas A&M is going to be really, really good in the SEC. And one of the things, too, is their schedule plays out really, really well in their favor. All of their tougher matchups in the SEC, they get at Kyle Field. And you know how tough it is to play at Kyle Field. Do I think they're going to win the SEC? I don't think so. Probably not. But I think they're going to do really, really well, especially if Connor Wigman can stay healthy. Now, UTSA at number 3. Again, this one was really tough because I do think that UTSA has a chance to win their conference in the AAC. They're bringing a lot back. This defense is going to be locked down. They brought a lot of guys in from the transfer portal. I think they're going to be really, really stout on defense. The question with me with UTSA is they're having to replace Frank Harris, who was the heart and soul and leader of that offense last year, right?
For the past 7 years.
Right. And then Rashad Wisdom on the defense. I mean, those two guys, we talked to them at AAC Media Days with Coach Traylor last year. Those two were the leaders of that team. They're having to replace both of them. And I know there's some rumblings going around about who's going to start at quarterback. Is it going to be Owen McCown or is it going to be ELM, Eddie Lee Marburger? I think it's going to be Owen McCown. Yeah. If they can figure out that quarterback situation, I think the ceiling is really, really high for the Roadrunners. And if they can find those leaders that they had last season that really built up the culture and the mindset of that program. Yeah. So, again, also, SMU's leaving the AAC.
That's where I was fixing to go with this. It was funny because I wondered how much stock. Let's take a grander look at this. We're talking about these two specific teams relative to their conference. In any other year, that would make a lot of sense. Okay, conferences have been the same. Right. This is the year that both of those conferences took a big shakeup, and your number 2 in the Aggies are on the bad side of that because they're bringing in an Oklahoma team that who knows if Venables is going to figure it out. He usually does, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit better. And then 2, they're bringing in a team that made the college football playoffs last year. Right. So while A&M's road is getting harder, I would argue that UTSA's is getting easier because that is one you have a Willie Fritzless Tulane, so that's a huge addition for UTSA to take a big stride. You're getting a, where was I going with that? You're getting a, man, I just completely blanked.
You're just getting a,
SMU is leaving. So there's another feather in the cap. So their road is getting easier.
Right. Well, and let's go ahead and speak to SMU too, because I put them at number 4. I want to rank them higher. I really, really do. I would have put them at 2, honestly, if they were still in the AAC. Because you throw it back to last year, they beat Tulane to take the title of in the AAC. They have a ton returning. This team is going to be really, really stinking good. Preston Stone's coming back. He's a phenomenal quarterback. Probably one of the best in the AAC. Now was one of the best in the AAC.
Is that Florida State quarterback still there?
Travis Hunter, no. Travis Hunter. Jordan Travis. I get those two mixed up. Travis Hunter's the two-way player for Colorado. It just doesn't cross. But it's one of those things. I just don't know how SMU is going to do in the ACC. They're going from the AAC to the ACC.
That should be
really
illegal.
Think about that. I know, right?
No, what's actually illegal is naming college conferences with numbers. No more numbers. We're out on numbers. No more numbers.
They added a couple of really good transfers from the portal, and one of the things that Craven mentioned in his best case, worst case scenario for SMU was that they added a lot of big dudes, which could mean the difference between G5 and P4. Because obviously, at the competition at the P4 level, those guys are big. Those guys are just different, right? So if they've got an offensive line that can protect Preston Stone, I think that they're going to be really, really, they could be a contender for the ACC title. They get Florida State at home, which is awesome.
That rocks.
That'll be
if Ford
super
Stadium
fun.
is not popping, I will be very disappointed.
They get Florida State at home, and they don't have to play Clemson, who I would say is probably the leader to win the ACC right now. So that's why I put them at 4. I would rank them higher, but I just don't know how they're going to do in the ACC, but we will see.
Okay, moving on there now to, so there's your top 4, and we go through the next 4 here. Texas State, then at 6 you have Texas Tech in the Red Raiders, at 7 TCU, and at 8 Baylor.
Where would you like to start? Because this was really tough for me
to
a
lot.
Figure out.
I agree with your Texas State pick.
I am high onto the Bobcats, let me tell you.
I am as well. I agree with that. I think that's it. And I feel like 5 is a really good spot for them because I agree with your diagnosis of SMU and especially up front. All of those questions are going to be answered up front. I agree with that. Texas State feels like a really good pick there. I think that TCU and Texas Tech are a little bit interchangeable.
Yes, I agree with that too.
I like how that's probably what I would have done, but I do agree that those two could be flipped, I think, without much discussion.
Yes. The reason I put Texas Tech over TCU was simply the quarterback situation. They're kind of both in that same situation where, like, they both had 2 good quarterbacks that got hurt last year, Josh Hoover and Baron Morton, right? Baron Morton, if he can stay healthy, bringing in Micah Hudson, a 5-star receiver, they've got better offensive line. I think Texas Tech could be a potential contender with Kansas State and Utah in the Big 12. TCU, I just don't know. I just don't know. They're bringing in a couple of really good players from the portal, but it's just one of those things. Can they find the leadership that they had in the 2022 season? And that's what they tried to do last year, but it just didn't work. They lost too many players. It's one of those things. Have they reached their ceiling? I mean, obviously playing in a national championship.
Yeah, you climb the mountain and you fall down. Can you get back up?
Exactly. But they even missed a bowl game last season.
Right.
So it's how are they going to come back from that?
I think the other thing that I like about ranking Tech a little bit higher here is because we're really going to get to see Joey McGuire's chops here. Because being honest, I always, in my mind, when it comes to college football coaches, you have a 3-year gap before you need to prove yourself. Because I understand, and we'll talk about a program here in a second that I think is why I give the 3-year gap. A lot of coaches like to come in and they gut the place and then they start the rebuild. So you get 2 years into your system after the first initial gutting year. Okay, so I'll be very interested to see how his team responds in knowing that this is that year, especially with the exit of Texas, with the exit of Oklahoma. Like, hello, wake up, it's your 3rd year, let's party. You know?
And that's what's super interesting, I think, just in general about the Big 12 this year is that
there's not really a front runner.
There's not really a front runner. I mean, you can make arguments for Kansas State, you can make arguments for Utah, Texas Tech. but they're all so similar, you know, and that's what makes it super
because they've all
exciting.
been middle of the pack
Big
teams
12,
for
yes.
so long. Even
Right.
Utah before it was in the Big 12. I mean, they had some more success there. But Kansas State and Texas Tech have been programs that have notoriously been middle of the pack for so long that you just say like, oh yeah, they're definitely not going to be bottom of the barrel. But like an 8 or 9 win season is pat on the bat, let's go win a bowl game and get out of there. That's been good enough.
Right, exactly. I think so too. I think you mentioned Baylor too. I think Baylor is at the perfect spot. I don't know much about how the Bears are going to bounce back this season. They went 3-9 last season. This was Dave Aranda's 3rd season in 4 years that he's gone sub 500, which is, and then that 4th season, of course, that's when he took over from Matt Rule, and they won the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma State. I think bringing in a new OC and Jake Spavital is really, really promising.
Yep.
They're also bringing in a quarterback from Toledo. His name's DeQuan Finn, and he did really, really good at Toledo. I think they're going to get the offensive side of the ball figured out, and that's why I have them ranked at 8, because I think you'll see the rest of them. I don't think the offensive side of the ball is there for any of those. But I think that's why I ranked them at 8, is because I said, hey, the offensive side of the ball with Jake Spavital there, I think is going to be figured out. The problem with Baylor is the defense, and Dave Aranda is a defensive-minded guy, and Craven has always said, if you're having issues on your own side of the ball, why they hired you, that's concerning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
That's concerning.
So that's what, at first glance, the largest question that I had was Baylor. I was like, I want to hear what her, because I'm just out on Baylor. Maybe that's just me. But I was like, what is her reasoning for this? But it does make sense, because the other thing that you wonder was some people, and this is not necessarily like a terrible dig at Dave Aranda, because I truly believe that Dave Aranda is a very good defensive mind. Sometimes when it's almost like take your eye off the ball of what you're there to do. It gets too much to manage all of that stuff. And so I'm wondering if the head coaching thing is just not for some people. There are a lot of coordinators out there that would say, yeah, I could have taken a head coaching job by now, but I'm not going to be successful. I'd rather go be like the top dog of defensive coordinators and get to go follow around these championship winning programs.
Right. He was incredible at LSU. That's where he came from.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so it's like, with Spav coming in, is that going to give enough off of Dave Aranda's plate to delegate somewhere else to where he
focus
can focus on the defense?
Yes.
And yes, if the defense comes out and it looks bad after they've made all of these moves, he ain't sticking around.
No,
he's on the hot
seat. He's already on the hot seat. This is,
He's
like
done.
I said, 3 seasons with a sub 500. When this team can taste success, I mean, you throw it all the way back to before Dave Aranda. That team had so much success, and they can taste it. The fan base can taste that. It wasn't that long ago, and they're hungry for more of that success.
In a wide open Big 12 too.
Right, and they've got money. They can pay, so they can, keep your eye on them. They could be making some moves. They need to start off hot, or we're gonna have some real concerns there, because the Big 12, like I said, it's an evil level playing field. They need to be able to compete in that realm.
So moving on now to, we'll lump the last 5 into the bottom of the barrel here. Sadcaw, North Texas Mean Green coming in at 9. Hoot, Rice coming in at 10. The Cougs of Houston coming in at 11. Bearcats, Sam Houston at 12. And then we're going way out west to the UTEP Miners there at 13. I'm going to be honest I think I agree with all of this.
Yeah.
I think.
It's funny. So when I was talking to Carter about this, I was like, you know what the funniest thing about this is that I think I know the least about North Texas.
Yeah.
And that's my alma mater.
Honestly, because it was the amount of transfers out and the new in, like
they lost 3 of their most, like their
the 3
impact
core
players.
people.
Chandler Rogers, Jamori Macklin, and Ayo Dai. And they have brought in a ton of guys. They brought in Chandler Morris, who was the quarterback at TCU.
Which I like.
It's good.
I like.
I'm concerned about the offense because I don't know who's going to be that star player that we need, and it could be Chandler Morris. We just don't know. He hasn't even enrolled at UNT yet. So there's still some question marks surrounding that, but that's not why they're down there.
It's the defense.
It's the defense, man. It's the defense. And I've heard some rumblings. I don't know what kind of scheme they're going to run. They started off last year with a 3-3-5, which we quickly found out that we just do not we, North Texas just does not have the person. My caw's coming out, man. My caw's coming out. But North Texas just did not have the personnel to run a 3-3-5. No.
Especially not
Programs
moving
like,
into the American where they're bigger up front.
Correct.
They were not like that in Conference
I was going to say, programs like Georgia can run a 3-3-5 because you have those
corn-fed
dogs up front. Yeah. And then you've got those safeties down there, right?
Yeah.
You've got those safeties in the back. Yeah,
we had little puppies compared to Georgia.
Correct. Now, in North Texas, they brought in a bunch of safeties. They brought in some really, really star DBs that probably are going to make an impact. But they didn't bring in nearly as many defensive linemen, which is kind of concerning. So I don't know if they're going to switch, but
I'm interested to see what, like you said, what changes Eric Morris makes, mainly because he is offensive guy.
Yeah.
He loves to score points, and that works really well when you have a defense that can last that long into games. But when your defense is getting torched in the first half,
you can only rely on that
going.
Correct.
Like, you can't keep your foot on the gas at that point because you're
tired.
just going to keep getting torched. And if you have an offense that is able to just completely torch people from start to finish, and you never have to worry about that,
day, right?
Absolutely. The initial air raid under Mike Leach
Correct.
could do that. We've seen a lot of programs in recent times that are capable of doing that. North Texas's offense, even at its peak last year, which was good to a certain, like, it got better as the season went on, it was not good enough to supplement for the lack of defensive play that they were getting at that point.
And now the AAC, like we said, is getting a little bit easier, but they still didn't shine or stand out in the AAC last year. So, again, it's funny. I don't know what this team is going to look like. I have no idea.
Like what we used to talk about with Texas State in a little bit of a different vein. It wasn't just all transfers, but a lot of transfers coming in. It's hard at any point. I mean, we talked to Sonny Dykes last year when they played Colorado in their first game, and it was like, how do you prep for that? You ain't watching film, So it'll be very interesting to see how the North Texas transfers settle in, and you'll know heading into conference where on this meter they would end up going.
Yes. Now, I don't know really I want to start here. Rice is interesting because they had one of their best seasons in program history last season, making a bowl game. Now they lost, but they did make it to that mark. But that was in a lot of that credit is due to JT Daniels, who was the stud quarterback that they had, and then, of course, Luke McCaffrey, right? Both of those guys are gone. Now they're bringing in E.J. Warner from Temple, who was good for them last year. He's a little turnover prone, so I'm not sure what he's going to look like at Rice. But it's kind of the same thing with UTSA. You had those two guys. Those were your leaders, right, of the program. They set the tone.
What do you do now?
What do you do now?
Yeah.
So that's why I think I ranked them. And you can talk about Bloom kind of being on the hot seat too. I think he did buy himself a little bit more time last year with making the bowl game and stuff. But also,
it's a different job at Rice.
Realize that Rice's ceiling is just not as. The expectations at Rice are just not as high as they are in other places because they're so dang smart. They have to recruit like Stanford, right? It's just a different ball game there. So it's really hard to figure out where to put them on here. Yes. Houston, they kind of scare me a little bit.
I think they're going to be very bad.
Yeah, but I love Willie Fritz. I think he was a program difference maker. He turned Tulane around to being a powerhouse in the AAC. I don't know if he can do that at Houston. I really don't. I don't know if he has the players to do it. I don't know if he's brought in enough. I just have a lot of question marks surrounding them.
It's going to be very interesting to see. We're going to see how good Willie Fritz is at recruiting next year. Because what is going to happen is I think that maybe they're subpar. Maybe they're not trash, but they're subpar. And it's like, okay, but that's what Willie Fritz does. He
Right.
comes in, he guts the program, and then he builds it up from the top. So that is a little bit easier, use that with caution, to do at a smaller school
Right.
where it's like, okay, once you get people to buy in for one season, then they're good. This is a program that's going to be looking for continued success. So can you make enough of a dent to
Correct.
convince people, hey, you come next year and we've got you, man, like we have got you. So how much can he retain from the recruits that he has brought in is going to be the interesting thing. I think he is the right guy at Houston. Interested to see how well he can get people to stick around if
Yes.
it doesn't go good automatically.
Yeah. Also, the defense last year kind of confused me. One game they would be lights out, lockdown defense. The next they'd give up 40 points.
Under Dana, they played to their competition.
Yes.
They go out against Texas and lose on a kind of sketchy fourth down call, and then they lose to Rice at home.
Right.
Like they played to their competition. If
Correct.
you can keep them going, unlike what Dana Holgerson was able to do, it'll be different. It'll be different in the locker room for sure. I think that's very well known.
Correct. And then the offensive side of the ball, they lost Sam Brown and they lost Matthew Golden, which were their two studs. They got Joseph Manjack coming back, that's really exciting, and then Donovan Smith at quarterback, who is also very, very iffy. He plays to his competition. So I don't know. I personally don't think that they're going to be contenders in the Big 12 this year, but they could totally prove us wrong.
Right.
Who knows? It could be another TCU situation where Sonny Dykes comes in and takes them to a
So,
national
yeah,
championship.
exactly.
I would love that. Please prove me wrong.
Go Cougs.
And then finally, the Sam Houston Bearcats at 12 and the UTEP Miners at 13. Very obvious why I put Sam Houston over UTEP, and it's because the defense. Sam Houston's defense was really good last year, considering who they played. I mean, they had a couple of games non-conference that were tough for them, and they were probably going to give up some points. But they're ranked, I think, in the top 60 in the FBS, which is the top half. I mean, it's pretty good. My question is the offensive side of the ball for Sam Houston. That was bad. With Keegan Shoemaker at the helm, there was little to no offensive production the entire season. So that's why those games were so low scoring, because the offense couldn't score. And then the defense would do a great job of keeping the other team from scoring. You got to do both, You can't. It's kind of the same thing with
someone
the
has to
Ingrid.
score.
Right, exactly. So that's why I ranked them ahead of UTEP, because UTEP, I just have no idea what's going to go on there. Like, you're bringing in Scotty Walden. I think he's from Austin P. I think that's a great fit. He also brought in a lot of players from Austin P, a lot of impact players that are going to help out this roster that they've had to kind of remake over the past year. I don't see UTEP being a contender in Conference USA. I just don't, because especially when you have New Mexico State and you've got Liberty, two teams that have been really, really strong in the past couple years. I just don't think that UTEP really is going to be a contender. I think Sam Houston has a chance if they figure out that offensive side of the ball, which you know who's in their quarterback competition this year?
I don't.
Grant Gunnell.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Grant Gunnell. So he is currently fighting for the starting
Maybe
job.
I did know
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I am interested to see if UTEP is able to get the ball rolling a little bit this year. Scotty Walden he's a younger guy. He's boisterous. He's energetic.
Which is the exact
Love
opposite
Dana Dimmel.
from Dana Dimmel.
He's fantastic, but he's like the grandpa that you
yin to
want to
the
get
yang,
a beer with. Like you want to listen to him talk and,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. Scotty, on the other hand, it's going to be like, dude,
He's going to a
check out
basketball
El
game.
Paso.
He's going to a UTEP basketball game with his shirt
Shirt
off and
off,
his
it's
stomach
UTEP,
painted.
go Miner. Yeah,
like that's the
exactly.
kind of guy that
So-
Scotty Walden is.
and-
Great energy from that, because I think that's what they need.
That's what you
I think
have
this is
to
going
have.
to be a big culture change for UTEP. So who knows? I mean, that might be enough.
If they can put it together, I have confidence from everything, and I don't know him personally, but from everything that I've heard that people have interacted with him, I've heard like, oh yeah, the locker room will be in great shape.
Right.
Can they put it together on the field? I have no idea. I don't think anybody, if you're acting like you know that, you don't. But the behind the scenes aspect of it will be great. If in front of the camera we can get it rocking, like, picks up,
Yep. Yeah. So it was tough.
Is
I
there
think
anything
that
after walking through it that you would change?
Yeah.
Is
I'd
it
pick-
2 and 3?
I'd put UTSA at 2. Absolutely.
All right. She wasn't willing to commit to the graphic, but you heard it.
Oh,
here
I'm changing
first.
the graphic.
Okay.
I'm going to change the graphic. I'm right here correcting myself.
No.
I'm putting UTSA at 2, Texas A&M at 3. So
Okay.
I'll change that graphic. But that is, I don't know. It's just, it's tough. It's really, really tough because, again, like, you can't really compare the two, you know? But at the same time, it's like,
if it's true to overall strength of conference and schedule.
yeah, UTSA takes the
Snip,
cake
snap,
on that.
snip, snap. You have no idea the effect that this has. Let me tell you. All right, there it is. Mallory Hartley's preseason Texas college football power poll. If you want to yell at her, at Mallory Hartley on Twitter, I will
Please
go
don't.
through and like all of them.
That's very mean. Because you agreed with everything on here. So
Most everything, yes.
What did you disagree with? Actually, I'm curious before we end this.
The only thing, like I said, I think Tech and TCU could have been interchangeable. I do agree that if you're looking at it straight from a power poll perspective,
UTSA's
I'm willing
yes.
to hear the debate. I don't know which one. I would really need to dive into some more like player personnel type of things to really make my decision. I understand your debate on that one. The Baylor thing still worries me, but then I looked down and I was like, well, shoot, I don't know who I would put ahead of them. The Baylor thing worries me though. I am very concerned about Baylor. Baylor being 6 just doesn't feel right in my gut.
No. I also just don't think Baylor needs to be down there at like 11 or 12.
You know
either.
what? You know what I think that I keep thinking too is that you look at Houston and UTEP, they've got brand new coaches, they've got a ton of new players. I wouldn't be hesitant to necessarily say, hey, if one of them figures it out, instantly goes up against Baylor, but
yes,
preseason, it makes it hard to do that. But in my gut, I'm like, one of these two teams could pop off before I think that Baylor will pop off.
Right.
I think Dave Aranda's done after this year.
Yeah, well, and I think again, going back to it, I think if the offense can figure things out, I think they're going to be they're going to be a lot better than last season.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm all over the place about Baylor. I feel like I tried to believe, and then they just kind of swatted me too many times. I think I'm just butthurt. But there you go. Mallory Hartley's Texas College Football Power Poll.